So last week we brought you the news that Spa-Francorchamps is going to remain on the Formula 1 calendar for a number of seasons to come. However, the caveat to that is that the Belgian Grand Prix will be rotated in the near future. This infamous race rotation scheme that Stefano Domenicali, the CEO and president of Formula 1, has been more than hinting at. He's basically outlined that he's going to do this with some European rounds to allow them to be on the calendar, but only allow them to be on there every other year instead of every year because of the finances involved in Formula 1, as F1 looks to exploit itself to even more markets around the world, looks to chase the money like I always talk about. And the Spa Grand Prix organisers have come out with a quote that is very concerning in my opinion, and it really does show that Formula 1 is looking away from Europe and looking towards other markets around the world, looking to get away from its origins, its heartland, its homeland, if you will. The FIA based in Europe. Most of the drivers these days still come from Europe. All the teams are based in Europe pretty much exclusively, apart from Haas, who have a satellite base over in the United States, but I think they're getting rid of that soon. So let's have a look at this, guys. Now, normally I would read out from an article on the F1Chronicle.com. However, unfortunately, the guy that does these articles is off work at the moment, so I can't do that, but I do have the story here, so I can read it to you, and I can give you my opinion on the subject. So, Formula 1 sees its future with only 8 surviving Grand Prix in Europe. That is the claim of Belgian politician Melchior Wathelet. I am probably absolutely butchering that pronunciation, I do apologise. Who doubles as president of the Belgian Grand Prix promoter Spa Grand Prix. I am very satisfied, he told the Belgian news agency Sporza after it was announced that Spa-Francorchamps has inked a new Formula 1 race contract with F1 through to 2031. However, the deal starts to mark the start of F1's new idea to annually alternate some European races, meaning the iconic circuit will be absent from the schedule in 2028 and 2030 as well. These were difficult discussions, Wathelet admitted. Formula 1 only wants 8 Grand Prix in Europe. It was therefore difficult to sign a permanent contract for a long period, he added. But it is also not certain that there will be no Grand Prix in Belgium in 28 or 30. The spirit of the agreement states that there will be at least 4 races for us, so in 28 and 2030, maybe it will be in another country, but maybe it will be in Belgium. Wathelet admits that although Spa is entering the rotational scheme, the cost of the deal with Formula 1 has actually gone up. How? The amount is higher from 2026, but it's an increase of 3 to 4%, he said. We thought that it was reasonable. It's not like it's doubled. It is a reasonable inflation which we think we can recover. I suppose, but it's making things tougher and tougher for these races to be on the calendar. F1's CEO Stefano Domenicali admits it's possible Imola could be the next venue to be in the rotational scheme, while Assen is now trying to eye F1 for when Zandvoort stops being the host of the Dutch Grand Prix after 26. I think when so much money has been invested in the circuit, if it were possible and there were support, there would be definitely there to consider it, Assen chairman Arjen Bos told RTV Drenthe. I don't think that it's right to say right now that the Dutch Grand Prix is moving from Zandvoort to Assen, he added. I don't know even if Formula 1 wants to go back to racing in the Netherlands. They actually want to do fewer Grand Prix in Europe and go to Africa and maybe India instead. I've got no problem with Formula 1 going to other markets, but I do think the Heartland races have to be protected. In my personal opinion, when it comes to Assen and the Dutch Grand Prix, I don't see how Assen can host Formula 1. I just don't. The track would need to be completely changed. It's a relatively narrow and tricky track to even do on MotoGP, personally. That's just my take on it. I feel like they'd have to do some massive wholesale changes to the track. And in the words of a Dutch guy I spoke to years ago about this, when Max Verstappen was just a rising star in Formula 1 and they were on about bringing Formula 1 back to the Netherlands, and someone said to him, what about Assen? Couldn't Assen host it instead of Zandvoort? And he's like, no, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see them butcher my circuit. And I get it, because to host Formula 1 there, it would have to be a completely different track. Now, when it comes to the calendar only having 8 Grand Prix in Europe, that basically means if you go by the current amount of 24, that means a third of the actual races will be in Europe. Now, currently on the 2025 calendar, we've got quite a few races in Europe. We've got Imola, we've got Monaco, we've got Barcelona, Austria, the UK, Belgium, Hungary, the Netherlands, Italy, And depending on how you define things, you might throw things like Azerbaijan, but I personally wouldn't do. I wouldn't call that a European round. So there's 9 rounds in actually proper Europe at that point. Now, the Netherlands is leaving, that makes 8. Belgium is going on a rotation, so effectively that makes like 7.5. You've got Imola that's on about doing a rotation, so then you've got 7. You've got the Spanish Grand Prix changing to Madrid, so then you're back up to 8. So you're kind of consolidating what you've got at that point, but it's all about making sure that it's the right European rounds as well. Like that Madrid Grand Prix looks absolute trash in my opinion. I think it looks terrible. And then you've got race. I mean, this is the maximum as well. You might have races actually move off the calendar for the likes of Cape Town in South Africa, which we brought you last week. That they're on about doing a Grand Prix there. Rwanda is very, very much linked to having a Grand Prix in the near future as well when they make a track for it. You know, they're absolutely going to do that 100%. So for me, it's worrying, and it's worrying that they're wanting to do this, and I feel like it's just going to get worse and worse. And I'm not this kind of person who's like, oh, the European rounds are the only good ones, because that's just simply not true. Japan has Suzuka, which in my opinion is one of the best racing circuits in the world. The fans in Australia are incredible at Melbourne, and I think that's a good track as well, to be honest. I like Kota, I think that's pretty decent. I like the physical challenge of Marina Bay in Singapore. Interlagos in Brazil is an incredible circuit. But a lot of these tracks that are in this, you know, either in Asia or the Americas, they're not very good for the most part. There's a lot of them that are very average. There are some that are all right. China is all right, I suppose. Bahrain's all right. But would you really miss them if they're not on the calendar? Would you? Seriously? Would you rather go there, or would you rather go to somewhere like Imola or Spa or Zandvoort? I would much rather go for those races personally. But anyway, without going into a full-on rant, that's my kind of thoughts on it. It's just a bit of a concerning quote really from the Belgian Grand Prix organisers. But is it a surprise? No, not really. And it's not the last we've heard of it. This is the first we've heard of the rotation scheme. Belgium's the first one that's on it. There will be more. There will be a lot more. Let us know what you think in the comments below about this though, guys. How many races should we have in Europe per season? For me, I feel like we could have a few more. I think we could be getting close towards half the calendar, around 10 to 12 rounds. I feel like that'd be better. But we're going to have a maximum of 8 very soon. So we'll see what happens with that. Like, share, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed this video, guys. Really do appreciate the support as always. And of course, keep it tuned here to the F1Chronicle.com to see much more stories just like this. Hopefully a little less like this, actually, on the world of motorsport like this. Have a good one, guys. See you soon.